welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
The Life and Times of Walter Reuther, An Unfinished Liberal Legacy. And it's as much about the times of Reuther as a biography of Reuther himself. I've discussed this on a couple of the previous live sessions. And, the book begins, well, the second chapter, which was basically originally the first chapter, with the leap into a new century, the American century. And we talked about that. I've talked about that on one of the previous sessions. We talked about in the decades immediately preceding and following the turn of the century, we experienced a leap into modernity with the invention of things like the automobile and the airplane, wireless communication, advances in science, and the phonograph, other technology that came into being in this period, which drastically changed the life of the average citizen of this country, the average citizen in the world. During this period, and the natural advantages that the United States had to take full advantage of this. What I want to talk about today is the next few chapters. The third chapter is the formative years. So it's the formative years of the labor movement, and in the first half of the chapter, the formative years of Walter Reuther in the second half of the chapter. And then it proceeds into some of the major events in Reuther's life in the next 3 or 4 chapters. So to begin the formative years of the labor movement, essentially it's a history of failed strikes. We begin with the first labor organization back in at the end of the Civil War was the Knights of Labor. The Knights of Labor was formed more of as a social club, much like the Kiwanis or the Rotary, than a modern labor union. One of the goals of the Knights was to improve the education, the the background of the workers to make them more employable in the various industries and so forth. So it was a self-help organization as much as it was an advocate for labor rights. The AFL formed, a bit later, but with similar goals. And the other unions that were present at the beginning of this phase of the labor movement were the railroad brotherhoods. And the railroad brotherhoods similarly organized. That they were more of a organized like a social club to improve the lives, the education, improve the individual workers and help them get employment into the various industries. Okay, that began to change. The economic system in the well um, in the post-Civil War era went through a period of booms and busts, and the busts occurred relatively at 20-year intervals. There was the Panic of 1873, a Panic of 1893. I guess the next scheduled panic in this particular progression would have been 1913, but that was pretty much avoided because of the build-up for not necessarily the American entry into what was looming as the Great War, but to supply the various parties with the war materials, etc., that they needed. So industry was gearing up for the possibility of war during this time. So that particular event was avoided. But in the Panic of 1873, the effect was that the companies at the time, the railroad in particular, clamped down on their workers. They cut the pay of the workers. They did not improve the conditions in their lives. So the strike, the Great Railroad Strike of 1876, 1877, in response to the economic downturn and the way that the railroads were cutting back on the salaries, etc., was an almost spontaneous strike. It went from originally in the B&O railroads in Maryland, in Baltimore, and spread from the Reading and on all around the monopoly board, basically, to railroads in the Midwest and into the West. And there wasn't a lot of union or activity, let's say, by the various socialist or anarchist movements, that were backing the strike. There wasn't a lot of organization for it, and it was put down. The next panic was the Panic of 1893, and one of the effects of that was that the Pullman workers, the workers that worked to building the Pullman cars, also lived in a town called Pullman, that was basically a company town where, the company supplied them with housing and so forth, but they were to get all of their supplies, they had to pay their rents and so forth. So what they were earning in their salary was being essentially paid back to Pullman, through the rents and, the purchasing of their groceries and, essentials in the town. So again, the way Pullman, reacted to the Panic of 1893 was to cut the wages and increase the costs of services and so forth in his town, his company town, Pullman. They appealed to the American Railroad Union, which is a relatively recent union that was formed by a man named Eugene Debs, and had conducted a somewhat successful, a fairly successful early strike against the Northern Railroad Company in the Midwest, in the West. Uh, they the American Railroad Union listened to the appeals of the workers at Pullman and decided to help them. And so there was a massive strike that was broken by the essentially by the government that sued the railroad union for violating the Sherman Antitrust Act. In other words, because the mail was not being delivered, they were conspiring to halt the services of the U.S. Postal Service. The union lost. The union was broken, and Debs ended up in jail, and that was the fate there. So the AFL looked at the situation and saw the futility of trying to organize the industrial workers. That they saw that they would be up against the power of the of the government, as well as the power of the corporate interests and the entwined interests, let's say, of the corporations and the government. So they decided that they were going to just act at the margins. The margins being the plumbers, the electricians, the carpenters, the people that provided these services that did not work for any of the major corporations that were trying, whose goal was to get into the middle class and so forth. So they were not interested in, trying to unionize industrial workers. They were content to work at the margins. They did not, strike. They were loath to strike, and they became more of a union for the craft workers, the different crafts, who were found it more easily able to work their way into what was then the middle class. So that was the stage at the end of the 19th century. The lesson that the AFL learned was don't try to combat the powerful interests that are going to defeat you. Work at the margins, and just be content to try to organize the craft workers and the people that aren't employed, let's say, by not so much multinational at that stage, but the the continental-wide big industrial union workers and the powerful interests like the railroads and the factories. One of the unions that came into being at the end of the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century, was the Wobblies, the International Workers of the World. And this was, the leaders of the Wobblies were pretty much an anarchist group. They didn't have any particular political philosophy like socialism or communism or anything so much as that. I mean, they may or may not have been communist, socialists, Trotskyites, whatever. Well, it's a little bit early for Trotskyites, but they were more in believing in anarchy. And the picture of anarchy would be not the worker standing with a gun in his hand, but the worker with his hands in his pocket. So, once we get the worker to stand with his hands in the pocket in this great general strike, that would bring down the capitalist system, and anarchy would produce a new system, that was more inclined to favor the workers. The first strike, or the major strike that they were involved in, was the Lawrence woolen mill strike. The woolen mill workers in Lawrence, Massachusetts, many of whom were immigrants, recent immigrants, went on strike for the usual reasons. Harder, shorter hours, longer, more money, etc. Um, a thing that precipitated the strike was the usual reasons that the company was trying to, cut their wages or increase their hours. Um, they called in the Wobblies, the International Workers of the World, to support them in their strike. Um, this was, the Wobblies were very good at, providing the services and so forth that were needed to supply food. One of the needs would be to, for the women who were going to be on strike, to support their families. One of the things that was done was to send the children to live while the strike was going on with families in New York, Philadelphia, elsewhere that were sympathetic to the cause and wanted to help by sheltering the children while the women were on the picket lines and on strike. They supported food supplies and so forth. So they provided the striking women with the necessities and so forth that they needed to continue their strike. Also, this was the beginning of, well, not the beginning of it, but was sort of in the crescendo of the women's movement to secure the vote, to secure more rights, that were denied women, prior. During this time, there was the shirtwaist factory fire that, where women workers in New York City were, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory in New York City, where the women were trapped inside. They were sort of locked inside and couldn't get out. And, it was a large number of the workers died in this fire. And it was a cause, that a lot of the workers in the factory were Jewish, but they got support also from the women, the society women of the time, that rallied to their cause. So this strike took place, with some momentum, during the crescendo of, the women's suffrage movement and things that were going on around it at that time. The strike ended successfully. The women got their raises and got back to work. And However, it sort of marked the end of the Wobblies as well. That the powers to be, came down, against them. The lesson, the book contains much more of the details of, the various strikes, etc., of this period. Some of the activities, the courtroom activities, and so forth. But the lesson that was learned, particularly by the AFL, was, that it was suicidal to really try to confront the powers of the combined powers of the corporations and the government, which were pretty much intertwined. Okay, that brings us to the beginning of the middle of the chapter, where we look at the early life of Walter Reuther. And one of the questions that is posed is, in the discussion that were presented, is what what aspects of your book might be suitable for a movie. And this is truly something that would be suitable, not so much for a movie, but be more like several different episodes that are worthy of a movie. but of a serial, something that Ken Burns or a filmmaker of that sort, might be inclined to print. The early life of Ruther, the grandfather emigrated from Germany. He was a fairly religious man, but not not but let's say disinclined to the teachings of the formal teachings of the Lutheran Church of his in his area. He moved into Indiana, so. What he did was to form his own church. He held his own services on Sunday for any of those parishioners, any of those disaffected Lutherans who might want to attend a different type of service. It was more like a liberation theology that you would have in Central and South America more recently. That. You know, some maybe in the words of Pope, the proper study of mankind is man. That we're not going to abandon the worldly aspirations of man just to ensure some future reward. Let's say that may or may not be available in heaven. So he. So that was the grandfather. The grandfather, brought the family motto. There's no more noble cause than to support your brother, and no more greater achievement than to have done it well. So that became sort of a family motto. Ruther's father moved as a young man, moved to Wheeling, West Virginia, and he originally worked in an iron mill, where a rolling mill, where there were he was just somebody that was working with on the iron sheets that were being produced. But the people that were tending the furnaces, the heaters as they were called, were making about 5 times the daily amount of income that the people working on the rolled sheets were getting. So he would go into work 2 hours or so early, just to hang out with the heaters. He became friendly with one of the foremen, so he was learning what the task of a heater was. And when one day one of the heaters called in sick, he was there to provide relief. So he started working, as a relief heater, and finally became a regular full-time heater. The heaters were unionized. The heaters were decided to go out on strike against this company. He urged them that you need the support of the other people in the mill in order to support your strike. They were too good for that. The strike ended in failure. The company went out of business, and he was out of a job. So the next job was to be a teamster for the brewing companies. By a teamster, you meant the real thing. He had a horse-drawn team that was delivering the beer, etc., to the various bars and so forth in the greater Wheeling and Ohio across the river area. That particular brewing company supplied. He became a union leader there again. Resisted the effort of the National Teamsters Union to sort of incorporate just his group of Teamster workers, into the larger union, and maintained a union that represented all of the employees in the brewery. He was he was an effective spokesman. When Prohibition came into play, uh, he he became a spokesman for the company to go around and argue against prohibition. Uh, uh, he was also very a spokesman for the people that were fighting child labor in the mines. He went before the legislature to to try to enact laws to prohibit childhood labor in the mines. Uh, so he was an activist. There are several other activities, uh, and so one of the things that he did with his family. Well, let's have. I skipped a little bit. When Prohibition came into being, he was out of a job again. Uh, in the meantime, working for the brewing company, he enjoyed to have lunch at one of the particular places where he was delivering his supplies of the beer, and he enjoyed the cooking. He enjoyed the cooking of this one waitress that had just immigrated from Germany, and became friends. And eventually, she was waiting for her boyfriend from Germany to come over, but he never came. So eventually, she warmed to his attentions, and they were married. So his wife, Anna Stroker, were married, and they had a family that had four brothers, and then about 11 or 13 years, I believe it was, after the birth of the last of the brothers, a sister, a baby sister. So Ruther was the third in a family of four brothers and one younger sister. One of the activities that the father encouraged during for the children was on Sunday afternoons he would have a debating session, and there was the four boys, particularly the four boys were given the topic. They were assigned, you're going to be the pro, and you two are the con. With the topics of the day, you know, um, from civil rights, do we need special attention for the black workers, or will, as Debs believed, to that bringing up the yachts, let's say, rising for all the workers will bring up the the water, etc., for the black worker as well. So different topics related to the labor unions, the political situation of the day. They could go to the library for the week and develop what their arguments were going to be. Sometimes he would change it at the last minute and say, okay, I'm changed my mind. The people that are the pro will be the con, and vice versa. And he did this so that he emphasized that in order to be an effective debater and an effective proponent for your idea, you have to know the the um, the idea of the opponent. You have to know, what the opponent is supporting and why. So that became a very useful lesson, to the boys in later life. As they grew up, the older boy got jobs at various companies. He was not involved directly in the labor movement. But the three other boys, Roy, Walter, and Victor, particularly Victor, and those three boys did become involved quite substantially in the labor movement. And it was said that, during their arguments, that, one of the boys could pick up, or one of the young men at that time could pick up the strand of the, what the other one was saying, and would be able to pick up the strand of what the conversation was and just continue it. That they knew each other so well. Okay, I'm looking at but something telling me that the live stream, I believe, is about over, or has been over. I've been talking. I didn't come anywhere near close to describing what I was going to do, but I don't see I don't see any questions that are coming from the audience either. So maybe there is no audience. So maybe I was just talking to myself. Otherwise, uh, I urge you to investigate the book. I urge you can buy the book, or more importantly, maybe to me, would be to buy the ebook, the various ebook distributions. You can buy the book on Amazon. You can buy the ebook on Amazon, on Apple Books, on Barnes and Noble. So the book is available from a number of different sources. I will, hopefully, I'll be back again on Monday, and those of you who are interested, we can take up this discussion from them. Okay, thank you.